The evening began like any other quiet, with everyone settled into their usual routines. I was lounging on the couch, sipping a glass of wine, idly flipping through channels, looking for something to watch. The soft hum of the TV filled the room, but my mind was elsewhere. It was one of those nights when you have a strange feeling, like something unexpected might unfold. My stepson returned home a little later than usual after spending time with his friends. He gave me a casual nod and a tired smile before heading to his room. His entrance was unremarkable, as it had always been. Since I became part of his life, he had been polite, keeping a respectful distance. We didn't share a deep connection, but there was no discomfort either, just a quiet mutual acknowledgement that we were now part of the same household. As time went by, I noticed I couldn't stop thinking about him. His presence lingered in my mind longer than it normally did. Perhaps it was the way he looked at me, holding his gaze a little longer than usual, or maybe it was the subtle energy that seemed to fill the room whenever he was nearby. I tried to brush it off and focus on the TV, but the more I tried, the more distracted I became. Finally, I turned off the television and decided to call it a night. As I walked upstairs, I paused outside my stepson's room, hearing faint music playing inside. My heart quickened, unsure why I felt so drawn to his door. The house was now dark and silent, the kind of quiet that amplifies every little sound and heightens every sensation. I continued to my bedroom, but thoughts of him lingered. I couldn't help but wonder what he was doing and whether he might be thinking of me too. It was a strange, exhilarating feeling, one I hadn't anticipated, and it left me both excited and nervous. A few hours later, I woke to the sound of soft footsteps in the hallway. My bedroom door was slightly ajar, and I saw a shadow moving just outside. I sat up, my heart racing, unsure if I was still dreaming. The shadow paused for a moment, and then the door creaked open a little wider. It was my stepson, standing in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the dim light from the hall. He didn't say a word, but the look in his eyes said everything. There was a magnetic pull between us, an unspoken connection we hadn't acknowledged until now. I knew it was wrong, but the intensity of the moment was overwhelming. He stepped into the room, quietly closing the door behind him. For a brief moment, I thought about stopping him, but something deep inside me didn't want to. The air was thick with tension, and the silence between us only amplified the excitement. He walked slowly toward the bed, his movements deliberate and assured. My breath quickened as he sat beside me, his eyes never leaving mine. There was no turning back now. The air felt charged, and I could feel my pulse racing, anticipating what was about to happen. He reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from my face. His touch sent a shiver through me, every nerve in my body alive with sensation, and I could feel the heat between us intensifying. He leaned in, his breath warm against my skin, and in that instant, I knew I was about to cross a boundary I had never imagined crossing. Without speaking, he kissed me softly at first, as if testing the waters. But as soon as our lips met, it was as if a dam had burst. All the suppressed tension, all the unspoken emotions between us came rushing to the surface. The kiss deepened, growing more passionate and desperate, as if we had both been waiting for this moment far too long. His hands roamed my body, tracing every curve, while my thoughts became lost in the intensity of the moment. There was no hesitation, no doubt. The thrill of doing something forbidden made everything feel more intense, more exhilarating. My body responded to his touch, and I could feel the heat between us growing with every second. The night was a whirlwind of sensations, his lips on my skin, his hands roaming every part of me. The overwhelming feeling of being completely immersed in the moment was intense, passionate, and unlike anything I had ever felt before. Every kiss, every caress ignited a fire within me, and I couldn't get enough. Hours slipped by in what seemed like mere minutes, and when it was finally over, I was left breathless, my heart pounding, my body trembling from the sheer intensity of it all. We lay there in silence for a while, both of us catching our breath, the weight of what had just happened slowly sinking in as the adrenaline began to fade. Reality started creeping back into the room, and I knew what we had done was wrong, that there would be consequences. But in that moment, none of it mattered. All I could focus on was how incredible it had been, how alive I had felt, and how much I wanted to feel it all over again. After that night, we didn't talk much. It seemed we were both content to let the moment live on its own, separate from the rest of our lives. There was a silent agreement between us, an unspoken understanding that we wouldn't bring up what had happened. Still, the tension lingered between us, simmering just beneath the surface. Each time our eyes met, I could feel it, the memory of that night, the thrill of the forbidden, and the desire that still lingered between us. It felt as though we were both waiting for the next opportunity, the next chance to let it happen again, even though we knew we shouldn't. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I kept replaying that night over and over in my mind, wondering if he was thinking about it too, if he wanted it to happen again just as much as I did. The tension continued to build with each passing day, making it harder to resist the pull between us. Whenever he was nearby, my heart raced, and my body responded to his presence in ways I couldn't control. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, knowing we were walking a dangerous path but unable to stop ourselves. Then, one evening not long after that first night, it happened again. The same quiet footsteps, the same shadow outside my door, the same unspoken understanding as he entered my room once more. This time there was no hesitation, no nervousness, only raw, unrestrained desire. What followed was even more intense than before. We were both more sure of ourselves, more certain of what we wanted, and it showed in every touch, every kiss. The passion between us was undeniable, and there was no stopping it now. It was hot, electrifying, and everything I had been craving since that first night. From that moment, we both knew there was no going back. The line had been crossed, and there was no pretending otherwise. But instead of guilt, I felt more alive than ever. The thrill of doing something forbidden had awakened something within me, something I hadn't realized was missing. Now, every interaction between us was charged with a new intensity. Whether it was a glance across the dinner table or a brief touch as we passed each other in the hallway, the connection between us had grown stronger, even though we both understood the danger. We couldn't stop wanting more. It felt as if we were living in two worlds, the one where we pretended nothing had happened, and the one where we gave in to our desires. The excitement of it all was intoxicating, and I couldn't get enough. Looking back, I still can't believe how everything unfolded. It was a night that changed everything, a night I'll never forget. And even though I know there are risks, I can't help but feel drawn to him, to the intensity of our connection, and to the thrill of the forbidden.